My name is Ela Marin. I'm 25 years old, and this is not a movie, not a dream, not some viral fiction. This is a true story that I lived through, and I'm still carrying the weight of it. I thought moving in with my cousin for a fresh start would be the safest decision of my life, but what waited for me behind the guest room door was far from comfort. It was obsession disguised as kindness, manipulation masked by love, and betrayal that crawled quietly until it swallowed me whole. Like, subscribe, and share because someone else might be living in a safe home. That's anything. But this story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. It started the day I left Chicago with a single suitcase, a portfolio of half-finished design projects, and a heart stitched together from too many wrong turns. I was running from a toxic job, a breakup that shattered more than my confidence, and the suffocating sense that my life had stalled. So when my cousin Adrian Hale offered me his guest room in Charleston to reset and rebuild, I accepted without question. He'd always been the quiet one in the family, older, private, intense, but deeply polite. He owned a charming townhouse on a historic street, worked remotely as a financial analyst, and claimed he didn't do much outside of reading and cooking. It sounded perfect, safe, a soft place to fall. House with stunning brick exterior, ivy-covered porch, the kind of creaky floors that tell you stories. My guest room was upstairs, tucked in the corner with a small window facing the garden. The bed was neatly made. A single red rose in a crystal vase stood on the nightstand. I remember thinking, he's more thoughtful than I remember. That night over lemon pasta and wine, Adrian asked me about my dreams, my fears, what made me feel alive. His questions weren't invasive, they were warm. I felt seen for the first time in months. And I slept soundly that night thinking maybe, just maybe, this move was the beginning of healing. But healing doesn't come in houses that listen. Next morning, I woke up to find the rose replaced with a white one. At breakfast, Adrian casually said, "Red means you were running, white means you're safe now." I laughed nervously. "Do you always leave secret messages in flowers?" He smiled. "Only for people I care about." I brushed it off. He was family. He'd always been odd, poetic even. But in the following days, I started noticing things. My bedroom door creaked open at exactly 3:03 a.m. 3 nights in a row. Even though I'd locked it, my phone would randomly die at midnight, no matter how much charge it had. A pair of earrings I'd never seen appeared in my drawer, delicate silver antique. I asked Adrian if they were his mom's. He just smiled and said, "They look better on you." One afternoon, while organizing my wardrobe, I found a box beneath the bed. Inside, a sketchbook full of me, my face sleeping, my hands folded, my reflection in a window, all sketched in charcoal. Recent, I felt my chest tighten, my hands trembled. When I confronted Adrian, he didn't deny it. He simply said, "I like remembering you." The night I tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. Not the battery, not the engine, nothing. I grabbed my phone to call an Uber. No signal. I turned on the Wi-Fi. It was renamed "No One Leaves." I froze. My mind raced. Was this a joke? A sick prank? Was he watching me right now? I ran upstairs, heart pounding, locked the guest room door, pushed the dresser against it, and sat shaking on the floor. Minutes later, soft jazz started playing on the house speakers. Then Adrian's voice, calm and too close. "You always run before the good part. You did this when you were 10, remember? You didn't like the dark then either." I had no memory of that. But he did, and he remembered everything. He waited until sunrise when he finally left for his morning walk. Like clockwork, I ran, no shoes, no bag, just pure adrenaline. I flagged down a garbage truck, begged the driver to take me to the nearest police station. I reported everything, the sketches, the Wi-Fi, the rose. They searched his house. The sketchbook was gone. The Wi-Fi name had changed to guest_welcome_2. The earrings disappeared. Claim I was grieving and imagining things. Said I'd had a nervous breakdown before. Showed them my old anxiety prescriptions. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. The cops dropped the case. No evidence, no charge. Jesh texted me that night, "You forgot your red rose." I moved cities again, changed my number, got a new phone, new job, new walls to sleep between. But I never stay anywhere too long now, not because I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid of houses that remember. Might took 7 weeks, 2 therapy sessions, and a name change. Before I convinced myself I was safe again, I became Ela Monroe, not Ela Marin. I moved across the country to Santa Fe, New Mexico, into a tiny adobe rental, owned by an old woman named Maria who never asked too many questions. I worked part-time at a design co-op, kept my phone on airplane mode, and told no one where I lived, not even extended family. My cousin Adrian became a ghost I refused to name out loud. I buried him in dusty journals, unfinished emails, and late-night panic attacks I never let leave my chest. I didn't want to admit it, but I still heard his voice in my dreams, sometimes calm, sometimes humming, always too close, but he was gone. I made sure of the tunnel the knock. It came at 5:17 a.m. on a rainy Thursday. I hadn't ordered anything. No one knew I was there. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there, just a small box wrapped in brown paper resting on the doormat. I didn't open it, not then. I left it in the courtyard, told myself it was nothing, maybe even a mistake. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared out the window all day. That night I finally opened it. Inside was a single photo. Me standing in front of Maria's lemon tree, smiling, with a mug of coffee. The photo was taken from behind a glass window. My window tucked beneath it was a dried rose, the same kind he left in Charleston. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly threw up. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't call anyone because what would I say? That I was being watched by someone no one believed existed. I left the next day, again 3 moves for states. I paid cash, changed my name twice more, used prepaid phones. But everywhere I went, there were signs: a white rose on my porch in Portland, a charcoal sketch of my hand slip inside a library book in Austin, my favorite perfume bottle left on a sink that didn't belong to me, always subtle, always impossible to trace. Wasn't following me to kill me, was following me to keep me. Some people collect stamps, some people collect bones. Adrian collected memory, and I was his most vivid one. Eventually I stopped running, not because I felt brave, but because I was exhausted. I chose Denver, a city big enough to disappear, and I got a job designing museum catalogs, rented an apartment in a building with security cameras, and started documenting everything, every delivery, every unknown number. Every time I caught someone watching from across the street, I created a folder called the Guest Room Files. It filled fast. Then one night, while watching Netflix with a friend from work, the first person I'd let into my life in months, he paused the screen and asked, "Who's that guy outside your window?" I turned. No one was there, but a second later the lights in my building flickered. Then a message popped up on my laptop screen, still like red roses. My friend thought it was a virus. I knew better. That night I packed a gambit. This time I didn't run. I flew back to Charleston. I needed answers. I needed proof. I needed to know if the house still stood, if he was still there, if the shadows in that guest room were still breathing. The house looked the same, calm, brick ivy clinging like fingers, no police tape, no shutters, just a quiet home like any. A theory broke, and at midnight inside was spotless to spotless, almost like a showroom. The guest room, remade, pale blue walls, empty drawers, but under the bed, taped to the wooden frame, was the old sketchbook. My heart stopped at every page, was still there. Him sleeping, me crying, me looking out windows I didn't recognize, as if he'd been following me all along. But the last page wasn't a sketch. It was a painting, full color, a portrait of me, older, holding a baby. Smiling behind me stood Audrey Ann, smiling too. He dropped the book and ran, called the police, this time with physical evidence. The sketchbook was enough to reopen the case. But Adrian, gone again, his bank accounts frozen, phone off, car abandoned. In Charlotte, it was a ghost again. But something inside me changed. I wasn't going to keep hiding. I wrote an article anonymously and sent it to a Survivor podcast. The episode when viral, comments flooded. In other women, other stories, a patterner, past a predator. I wasn't alone any. Moments later, I got an email from a gallery in Atlanta. They were hosting a series called Reflections from the Guest Room, anonymous work by survivors turned artists. They had received a submission from someone claiming to be me, but the contact info didn't match. He asked them to send me the image. It was a painting of a woman on a bed, back turned, a shadow standing in the doorway, holding a rosy, and the title, "She Finally Belonged." I closed the Emailin changed my locks again. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. If you ever felt watched, controlled, or erased, you are not alone. Comment below with your thoughts separately and share with someone who needs to feel seen. Thanks for watching this video. There comes a point where fear stops feeling sharp and instead becomes a dull hum in the back of your throat, not loud enough to scream, but impossible to ignore. That's where I was after finding the sketchbook in Adrian's old house. After receiving the gallery email about a painting I didn't submit, I knew I had to stop being the hunted. Running had become my oxygen. Now I wanted to breathe something else, something like rage, something like justice, something that didn't taste like silence. So I began to plan not a getaway this time, but a trappee. Reached out to the gallery in Atlanta, told them I was the real Ila Marin. They were stunned. I showed them proof, sent them police reports, past emails, a few pages from the sketchbook I'd copied before handing it over. I told them I didn't want to cancel the show. I wanted to be there in person, quietly, an audience member watching, waiting, because if Adrian was bold enough to send in my painting using a fake identity, he'd be bold enough to show up. He was a collector, but not just of images, of presence, of control. He wanted to feel me watching my own capture. He always had. So when he wore a black dress and no perfume, he would have expected the lemon one. I sat in the back row. During the exhibits panel, they displayed the painting titled She Finally Belonged on a high white wall, perfectly lit. The woman in the painting me looked softer, blurred, almost resigned. And the man in the doorway, a faint outline, a shadow, but unmistakably Adrian. The crowd called it haunting, a few called it genius. I nearly choked. Then I saw him in the far corner, a scarf covering part of his face, thinner. His beard was gone, but those eyes glassy, still watching me the way you stare at a house you used to live in, not with longing, with ownership. Didn't flinch when our eyes met. He waited for the panel to end, waited until the room thinned. Then I followed him into the alley behind the gallery. No crowds, no cameras, just red brick and rain. Why are you still following me? I asked, my voice steady, even though my pulse screamed. Turned slowly, his mouth curved into something close to pity. I'm not following you, he said. I'm mad. You. The words hung in the air like poison. You made me paranoid. I shot back. You made me hide. You made me hate everything I used to love. That's not art, that's trauma. He stepped closer to close. I gave you depth. You were shallow before last. Now you create with pain. You speak like scars. You became more beautiful because of me. And that was the moment I knew he wasn't going to stop, because he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He thought he was elevating me like I was some half-finished canvas, and he was the only one who saw the masterpiece buried underneath. To him, love meant possession, it meant memory, it meant never letting go. So I gave him what he wanted. He looked him in the eyes and whispered you when he smiled genuinely. I always knew you'd see it. What he didn't see was the security camera mounted on the fire escape above, the one I'd had the gallery install the day before. What he didn't know was that I had a wireless mic clipped inside my dress, feeding everything to the small group of journalists and officers sitting inside the gallery. I didn't need him to hurt me again. I just needed him to confess. And he did. Within minutes, two plainclothes officers stepped into the alley. They didn't draw weapons, just asked him to come quietly. He looked at me one last time, eyes not angry, but disappointed. You were supposed to paint me one day, he murmured. I just did, I said. And this time you don't get to frame it. They arrested him on multiple counts: harassment, stalking, breaking restraining orders, and new testimonies that came pouring in once the article hit the news. Women from Charleston, Savannah, even Canada. One of them had reported him 5 years ago, ignored. Another had filed a restraining order that expired before anything happened. He had a trail, and now he had a cause seized for me. I changed my name back to Ila Marini, painted again, not out of pain, but out of fire. I started speaking at women's shelters, teaching art therapy. I opened a small studio called Room 303, named after the art I used to wake up afraid. I painted a final piece, one I never shared publicly. It hangs in my bedroom behind glass. It's not of him, it's not of me, it's just a guest. Room empty with the door wide open. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. If you've ever been gaslighted, followed, or made to feel unsafe in your own home, This story is for Yodelus. What part hit you the hardest? Subscribe to Stay with Yusik and share this video. Someone out there needs to know it's okay to speak.